So we did cover the netcat bind shells, reverse shells in the last video. Another thing that, shout out to Black Omega for the suggestion here, but another thing he was asking about is, what about Socat? Like, how does that, how does that factor in? How do you use that tool? What is that for, right? So to cover that, right, it's really difficult. Once again, it's really difficult to cover it because there's so much it can do. I'm going to highlight some of the things we'd commonly use it for, and also give you guys some advice on where to look for, the other capabilities of the tool. So Socat, completely different use case scenario than netcat, right? We're going to typically use netcat when we want a reverse shell or a bind shell. We want to get a shell on the system, right? We already have code execution, we want a shell. With Socat, we're mostly going to be using this utility for redirecting or port forwarding, right? So just to explain briefly what port forwarding is say we have a shell on the system, right? And I'll use my system for this case. Let's just imagine we're on the target system, a Linux machine, or could even be a Windows machine, right? We run a netstat command. We see what ports are listening, and we see that, okay, there's this some service running on port 323. I'm actually not sure what this is on my own system, but there's something listening on 323 on localhost only. So what that means is that I can't actually access this from my Kali machine or Parrot or whatever attacker box I'm using, right? I can't access this, right? I can only access this from the target system itself, and I might want to be able to access it, right, from my attacker box. That way I can run my tools on it, use Burp Suite, use all these things. So in that case, that is one such case that you might want to port forward. The other scenario, of course, is pivoting, right? And Socat is something you can use in order to do that. So if I wanted to do that, I could also use other tools, right? Like SSH. If there's SSH open, and I have credentials, of course, I can do SSH tunneling. I think that in this scenario, the tool that most attackers would use is either SSH tunneling or Chisel. Chisel is a tool we haven't really covered on this channel yet, but it's really useful for pivoting and, for port forwarding, things like that. Written in Go. So the advantage is that it's very cross-platform, and you can use it in pretty much any scenario. But another option you have for doing this forward is Socat. So as far as the actual command, I can't say that I've ever personally used it in this scenario. I know IPSec has like one video on where he used it for the port forwarding. Personally, for me, in this scenario, if I had credentials, and SSH was open, I would just do the SSH port forward here. When I say port forward, let me just take a step back. I know we have a lot of people that are newer to this stuff on the channel, and I definitely welcome you guys here, and thank you guys for learning. I want it to be accessible for you guys. What I mean by port forwarding is we can make this port here that's only listening on localhost, we can make it like this 000 where it's listening on all interfaces. So what do I mean by even that, right? If I take a look at my IP information, I have 3 interfaces, okay? Not to make this too much of a networking video, but I have 3 interfaces here, right? I have my loopback, which is just my local host, which is my system only. No one else can access my loopback. I have the ETH0 interface, which is going to be a routable IP address that's going to be accessible to anyone on my network, right? To my router and anyone on my network. Docker this is for Docker container stuff. I wouldn't worry too much about this interface here for this video. But I want this port to be accessible from my, ETH0, my routable interface, or maybe in a CTF scenario, my TON0, right? If I'm connected through some VPN service. So the way I do that is if I can get this to listen on all interfaces, what that means is this accessible, like this one, for example, 111, this is listening on all interfaces, meaning I can access it through the loopback, through ETH0, through Docker 0, through anything, right? So that's the difference there. So I want to do that. So how do I do that? I can use port forwarding. I'll dedicate, if you guys really want me to show like in depth, like specific commands of different ways to do port forwarding, we can make a video on that. But that's where I'll leave it here for now. That's what port forwarding is, and that's where one thing you can do with Socat. I would say the biggest use case though for Socat would be for forwards and for like redirects, right? When you need a general way to redirect something. So for example, I would say a really good resource is like the IPSec videos. If you go to ipsec.rocks and look up Socat, you can see where he's used Socat before. And this is a common use case for it. Personally, I haven't used this maybe but one time. But in a very niche scenario, this can come in great handy. So I want to highlight this. So I know like in some of the examples that I saw, the niche use cases, like if you have to do like multiple redirects, like say you want to redirect something to Burp Suite, and do a redirect within that, right? So obviously you can redirect things through Burp Suite by creating another proxy, right? But if you have to use multiple redirects, then that would be a use case for Socat. So you could do something like redirecting to your local host on port, I don't know, whatever port you set up in Burp Suite, like 8081. And then from there, you can redirect it again within Burp Suite. So it's very niche. So if this is like kind of confusing, doesn't really make sense, I wouldn't worry about it unless you're in a situation where you need it. And when you need it, you'll know you need it, right? You can look it up. And then since this is something you've heard about before, you'll probably pick up on it a little bit faster. But yeah, we could also verify once again that we can see that. All interfaces, port 80. But yeah, this is going to be redirected. So anything that I send to any of my interfaces on port 80 will be redirected to 127.0.0.1, 8081. So that's just one such example. I mean, I could change this to, whatever my needs might be. But hopefully that kind of answers this. It's kind of confusing. I know there's a lot of use cases for like really niche use cases for Socat. And they're kind of complex to explain. If I come across one on a CTF, I can draw attention to that just to give you something tangible to see. But without having like a target box where I'm using this against, it's really hard to explain it super clearly. But if you're completely new, this will probably at least help clear up some information, knowing like how much different these tools are, Netcat and Socat and so forth, right? So yeah, if you're interested in getting into some more technical content, I got that on the screen for you right now. If there's any questions, there very well might be. Let me know down in the comment section below. In the meantime, I'll see you guys right over there. Thanks for watching.